The thing that makes relationships unsafe, emotionally unsafe, is judgment. Judgment and demands. So the imposition of one person's will on another person against their will, and then judging people. These are the two main things that create suffering and pain in our relationships and leave us feeling emotionally unsafe, vulnerable, on guard, fearful. When we learn to stop imposing ourselves on other people and to stop judging ourselves and other people, we create a healing container. Okay. Why is it healing? We are meant to live as whole, integrated, awake, loving, empowered, sentient beings. That's what I believe. And what happens to us when we are plopped into little domination systems is that we end up in cultures that disconnect us from our true selves and that require that we abandon our true self in order to be safe around inequitable systems of domination and judgment that are designed to control and use people and turn them into objects. So many of us who grow up in those systems develop a form of internal fragmentation. And the internal fragmentation disconnects us from our wisdom, disconnects us from our power, disconnects us from our choicefulness, leaves us inherently afraid. And when we're afraid, we interact with other people based on our defenses. Okay, and our defenses can be everything from fight, flight, freeze. Our nervous system is activated, and our defensive self, which is really here for self-protection, is at play. So when people haven't woken up and they haven't done their healing work, what'll happen is whatever happened to you in, let's say, the first 18 to 25 years of life, you will have adapted to as a dependent young being, and you will have developed a lot of adaptive strategies to stay safe and to get approval in whatever community you grew up in. And most of us will have had communities where these things are acceptable and approved of, and these things are bad, and this is bad about you, and you need to make them go away. So we live internally split with a private self and a public self. This is not healed. This is fragmented. When we begin creating relational conditions that do not run on what I think about you, what I think you should be, how I think you should meet my needs, what my evaluations of you, what I think is wrong with you, what I think is right about you, what I approve of, what I don't like about you. When my relationships are no longer about me trying to mold you into who I need you to be, or me feeling like I have to mold myself into who you need me to be, when we begin detoxing that from our relationships, we begin having a lot more internal healing and connection and bridge building, and we begin reclaiming our authentic selves, and we become less and less dependent on other people's approval and good judgments for our well-being. Our well-being comes from a space of very, very deep self-connection and self-trust and knowing of your goodness, your inherent goodness, your inherent desire to contribute to the world, your inherent desire for dignity and kindness and inclusion and shared humanity. And you begin to bring alive all of the universal human needs that drive us and create a sense of shared humanity. In order for that to happen, we need what in psychology we call a corrective emotional experience. These were relational wounds. That's why shame is so big. Right? Shame is a social control emotion. You will be ostracized if you don't fit in. So you abandon authenticity in order to get safety and belonging. But the price is your authenticity and your connection with your deepest, most whole and healed self. Then the reclamation is having relationships in which I can be my fullest, most authentic self, a subjectivity that is related to, not an object to be used by other people. And when I have those kinds of relational conditions, what ends up happening in the system is it begins to start plugging back in all of the wiring that needed to be disconnected to stay safe as a child. And we cannot do that on our own. because it's not real if I don't have an on-the-ground experience of another human loving me for who and how I am, and being interested in my being connected to myself and not getting rejected for that. And that's partly why deep empathy work can be so healing, because what we're doing when we're really practicing empathic presence is we're sort of communicating a trust in the natural intelligence of the organism and the natural goodness of the human being. And when we're trusting that and we're creating space for that and we're looking for that and we're seeing it and we're amplifying it and we're encouraging it and we're relating to people in their goodness through an empathic sense of shared humanity, not like I'm helping you, okay, not from a power up position. What that does for the receiver is it creates a space where I can begin to look inward and not be so scared of what I might find. Most people don't want to do healing work because they're afraid that if they go inside, they're not going to like themselves and they're going to feel shame and they're going to discover how bad and awful they are. So they don't want to wake up. And empathy helps create some trust that what you are and who you are and what we collectively discover inside of you and inside of me is good and is welcome and is life affirming and is loving and is choiceful and is empowered. But if you've been brought up in systems of domination, especially moralistic ones, infused with a certain kind of fundamentalist religiosity of whatever kind you like, that is not what you believe. You believe that you're inherently bad, that other people are inherently bad, that you are not trustworthy, that they are not trustworthy. And you're in such a fear state in your nervous system that you think the only way you're going to get safety and belonging in the world is to make everyone like you. And that's why at certain levels, especially in our world today, people are very, very afraid of diversity. People are very, very afraid of difference. People just want the world to look like them. And then they want to impose themselves on everybody else, which is the ultimate form of violence. But we can look at how that's being played out globally, but individually, it's part of what's been coming up on the call today. In what way are you imposing your views on others? Whether you think they're great and lovely or not, that is not emotionally safe. And so the nervous system, you want to like the somatic piece, when beings perceive that another human is coming to act on them, okay, educate, advise, judge, strategize, coerce, convince, persuade, sell to, when that's the central thing in the relational container, my defenses are up. And that's a very healthy thing. Because what my system is doing is it's trying to protect my autonomy and my sovereignty as who I am in and of my own right. So your whole nervous system will start putting up, like, no, no, no. And that's why deep empathy, when we take demand energy out of the space, when we take imposing our values on people out of the space, when we take judgment of who you should be much more empathic. I would be much happier if you were a more empathic being. Like, the problem with you is you're not empathic enough. This is a version of coercing people, right? When we take that out of the space and we begin working with ourselves and others as they are, and we're empathic, the nervous system can release, the defensive system can come down, and we can begin reconnecting circuits inside of ourselves and getting to know who we really are. And then we start bringing a different kind of vulnerability and humility and learning and growth into those containers.